රස විහිදෙන ජීවිතේ.
Politics.
අවලස්සන ඇමරිකානුවා පොත යලි ශ්‍රී ලංකාවෙන් ලියවිමින් පවතිනවා.
ආයිනම් මේ ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ ඇමතිකමක් දරන්න ආණ්ඩුවක ඉන්න අපේ කිසිම සුදානමක්.
අවුරුදු 3ක් මම යන්නේ කැබිනට් රැස්වීම
මාවත් අස්කරපී කියන එකද ඔය කියන්නේ.
The people.
කොම්පැනි තුනක විසිරින් අපි දෙගෙන බෝලිං කරන සෙට් බෝලිං රාජ්‍යනේතු රාජ්‍යයක් මේක.
ඊට ගත්තේ 1551.
ඉතින් සංජය ගානවල දාපුවද බෝලේකුද උදාල් පාකිට අද්දා සංජය ගානකට ගියද ඈ ඒ පුල් ගන්න ගානවල දාන අපි දාල් පාකිට පුල් ගාන දෙන්න.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Bernadine Jayasinghe. Let's now take a look at headlines.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Gaman Pilla and Bimal expose rift in government. Heavy accusation against Basil. Vasudeva gives up ministerial position. Ministers can't criticize the government. Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana outlines president's stance. Crossover to the opposition. Samagi Janabalawegya challenges ministers who lost their positions. Fuel crisis aggravates. Long queues continue at filling stations. Gas companies limit supplies. Request for dollars to open letters of credit. Central Bank increases interest rates. Recommends to increase fuel and electricity costs.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Vimal Veerawansa and Udega Mampila, who were sacked from their ministerial positions, convened a media briefing today. They said they won't accept any cabinet position under the current president.
The leaders of 10 out of 11 constituent government parties convened a media briefing in Colombo today. Sri Lanka Freedom Party members were also present.
There was an internal struggle on our side before Gotabaya Rajapaksa was nominated as the presidential candidate. Basil Rajapaksa wanted to be the presidential candidate. They tried to use the Podujana Perumana as their personal asset to become a candidate. As a group that backed Mahinda Sulanga movement, we felt that if Mahinda Rajapaksa wasn't the presidential candidate, it should be Gotabaya Rajapaksa. This obstructed Basil Rajapaksa from achieving his dreams to a certain extent. After losing the elections on the 8th of January 2015, he met former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and requested to appoint him as the Prime Minister. But Mahinda Rajapaksa didn't like it. He then left the country without informing former President Mahinda Rajapaksa about it. We had no need to make him president. These policy issues arose even amidst this economic crisis. We can't live in a fantasy hoping that all these issues would be resolved in the near future. Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa had said he wouldn't be a part of the cabinet if both of us held cabinet positions. Just like every other occasion, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa sacked us from our ministerial positions to prevent his brother from not being a part of the cabinet. Basil Rajapaksa has manipulated Gotabaya Rajapaksa. It is regrettable that the president hasn't been able to avoid that. We have only followed the people's mandate. If sacking us is a response to that, then we will happily accept it. We wish to thank them for it. The President or the Finance Minister who advises him have decided that 2 ministers must be sacked to overcome the economic crisis. They assume that when we are sacked, there will be a massive inflow of dollars and fuel, and that power cuts will end. If the country can overcome this economic crisis even that way, we will be happy.
උඩේමට නම් මේ ඇමතිවරු දෙන්න ඉවත් කරන්න. දැන් අපි දෙන්න ඉවත් කරාම ඩොලර් පැටවු ගහනවා, තෙල් උනනවා, විදුලි බලය කප්පාදුව නතර වෙනවා. පුදුම ආශ්චර්යමත් දෙයක් වෙන්න නියමිතව තිබෙනවා. එහෙම හරි කමක් නැහැ. මේ ආර්ථික අර්බුදයෙන් අපේ රටට ගොඩ එන්න පුළුවන් නම් අපි ඒ ගැන සතුටු වෙනවා.
අපි දිව ගැට ගහලා ගොත ගසමින් තමයි මෙච්චර කල් කතා කරේ. දැන් මේ රට
We used to control our words in the past, but now we can freely name the people who are responsible for pushing the country into this situation. In the future, we are willing to submit written evidence and reveal those in the government who are responsible for the damage caused to the country. In 1958, a book was published in the US titled The Ugly American. A Sri Lankan version of this book is being written. A US citizen is now deciding the fate of Sri Lanka. Therefore, we have launched a struggle to free our country from the US. We will produce evidence to show how the country reached this point. This conspiracy is being carried out intentionally. We have reasonable suspicion that they are trying to steer this country to how Indonesia was in 1997.
ඉදාස් ඇමරිකාවෙන් නිදහස් වීමේ අරගලය ආරම්භ කරන්න අපට සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි සාක්ෂි සහිතව පෙන්වනවා මේ රට මෙතනට ගෙනාවේ කොහොමද කියලා. මොකද මේ සිතාමතා මේ කුමන්ත්‍රණය කරන්නේ. මේ රට 1997 ඉන්දුනීසියාව තිබුණු තැනට අරන් යන්නයි කියන සාධාරණ සැකය අපිට තියෙනවා.
රාජ්‍යයේ නායකත්වය මේ දෙපළ ඒ ඇමති
The entire country says it was wrong for the country's leader to remove the ministers. I can't continue to serve in my ministerial position until the government serves justice. I can't fulfill my duties as a minister. When there is a red light warning of danger, will the problem be solved when we switch it off? We won't join the opposition. There is no need to be suspicious about it. We can't allow activists at grassroots levels who voted for this government to be stranded. We wanted to provide some assurance to them. That is why these 11 parties were brought together.
යම් කිසි හෙවණක් හදා දීම අපේ වගකීමක් වුණා. ඒකත් ඉටු කිරීම වෙනුවෙන් තමයි මේ පක්ෂ 11 එකතුව අපි ඇති කළේ.
රට දැන් තියෙන තත්ත්වයට ඔබතුමාලත් වග කියන්න ඕනේ.
අපි වග කියන්න ඕනේ.
අපි වග කියන්න ඕනේ අපි දෙන දේ කාලා වෙන දේ බලාගෙන හිටපු අය නා. එහෙම අය නම් අපි වග කියන්න ඕන.
කිව්වේ බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ සමාජිතුමාව පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ගෙන්න ඔබතුමාලේ මේ අත උස්සලා පාර කැපුවේ.
බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂව පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ගෙන්න අපි අත ඉස්සුවේ නෑ.
නෑ ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ විරුද්ධත්වයක් තිබුණේ නෑ.
ඇයි නැත්තේ?
අපි විරුද්ධ වුණා.
After the 20th amendment was passed, when a journalist asked me whether someone will enter parliament under those provisions, I responded saying that a person with shame won't do that. But a shameless person entered parliament. I can't help that. We don't want to hold a ministerial position under this president again. As far as I know, the Prime Minister doesn't agree with this decision. The Prime Minister spoke to both of us. He was hurt. Their final decision had not reflected his stance. Basil Rajapaksa wants to spend his retirement in the US. His property is there. The US can arrest Basil Rajapaksa for money laundering. Why isn't that happening? That's because he must serve the US. Basil Rajapaksa's contract is to allow this economic crisis to aggravate so that the people will be upset just like what happened in Indonesia so that the US can take over. He works with that intention in mind. He must commit that betrayal if he is to enjoy life there. Otherwise, he won't be able to avoid being arrested for money laundering.
money laundering වලට අහු වෙන එක වළක්වන්න බෑ.
කැසිල් එමතුමා කියන්නේ තම සූක්ෂම අමාත්‍යවරයෙක්.
මොන සූක්ෂමද දන්නේ? හොරකමට විතරක් සූක්ෂමයි.
There is a policy-based decision. It was not a decision made just because of both of them. Susu Premajayanta also made some comments at a market. He didn't conduct an event. He was removed based on the president's policy that no one in the cabinet should criticize the government. If that was the case, then I believe it would have been the same for their removal after they held a massive convention and leveled heavy criticism against the country. There are instances in which they can level criticism. There are parliamentary group meetings and cabinet meetings. If they wanted to do something of this sort, they should have resigned and done it. That would have been better. If they feel that they can attack the government like this simply because they were brought into power, it can't be permitted. Everyone accepts that these are hard times for the government. When the ship is sinking, they shouldn't jump off it. They must support the crew on board the ship to bring it back under control. The crew shouldn't jump off the ship and allow it to sink.
We don't feel that the president made this decision alone. The president invited the ministers and prime minister for a meeting yesterday morning. Everyone agreed that if the government is to move forward, they must hold one policy. If anyone doesn't fulfill the responsibilities entrusted with them, that opportunity should be given to someone who can do a better job. Minister Vasudeva didn't target the government or any person and level criticism. I don't feel like Minister Vasudeva participated in that discussion out of his own will. That was what I saw based on his remarks.
නෙවෙයි ඒ සාකච්ඡාවට සහභාගී වුණේ කියන එක තමයි මගේ නම් දැක්කේ ඒ කතාබහ තුල. ප්‍රකාශ තියෙනවා මේ අගමැතිතුමා මේ සම්බන්ධව මේ කැමැති වුණා කියලා. මම කියන්නේ අගමැතිතුමත් ඒ සාකච්ඡාවේ හිටියේ.
The Prime Minister was present in that discussion. The President made the decision. There is a crisis in the Energy Ministry. If the situation was managed in a better way, I believe the queues for fuel and the power crisis could have been avoided. The ministers must want to ensure continuous supply of fuel instead of simply saying that the fuel can only last for 2 or 7 days.
ඉවරගේ පරමාර්ථය වෙන්න ඕන. අමාත්‍යවරයා ඇවිල්ලා දවස් 2යි තෙල් තියෙන්නේ දවස් 7යි තෙල් තියෙන්නේ කියන එක නෙවෙයි.
There are cracks in the government. 32 people have left the government. Some ministers have been sacked. Some others are going to leave. We hear that another group is going to leave the government next month. At 2 p.m. on the 15th of March in Colombo, we will begin our journey to save the country. Some in the government say that the government must be defeated. The Samagi Jana Balavegi invites anyone to join us to save the country and defeat this government. We are also requesting them to join us. We have no problem. A group left the government because it failed. Therefore, what they shouldn't be doing is creating 2 or 3 breakaway groups in the government. They must build a massive force against the government.
සන්දානයක් ලෙස ඔබතුමාලා රජයක් පීඩන්න ලෑස්තිද?
සාකච්ඡා කරගෙන යනවා පක්ෂය ඇතුළේ. අපි සුදුසු වැඩ පිළිලක් අපි අනාගතයේදී ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. දෙන්නේ අයින් කරලා ඒ පක්ෂවල තවත් කට්ටිය ඇමරිකන් දරනවානේ.
කලිසමක් ඇඳගෙන ඉන්නව නම් අඟහරුවාද පාර්ලිමේන්තුව රැස් වෙනවා.
If they have a sense of shame, let's see what they do during parliamentary sittings on Tuesday. We can see whether they are seated in the government or in the opposition, and even whether they are true or fake patriots. They were the ones who said that Mahathir Mohamad and Lee Kuan Yew are to come into power, and that this is the last chance to join the struggle against the US and to save the country. There are some state ministers from their parties. We can see whether all of them will resign and then cross over to the opposition. We can also see whether the Sri Lanka Freedom Party continues to hold ministerial positions and betray the other constituent parties. If they are true warriors, let's see whether they can sit in the opposition on Tuesday.
ඇත්ත සටන් කාමීන් නම් අඟහරුවාදා විපක්ෂයට ඇවිල්ලා වාඩි වෙනවද නැද්ද කියලායි බලාගමු.
ඒක පක්ෂේ වචෝදනා කරනවා ඔතුමන්ලා චෝදනා කරනවා ඒක දැසමලේ පොත්මාට ඔක්කොම රට වෙනස් කරලා.
He is now a free man. All cases against him are closed. He can go to the US at any time. He is the one who destroyed the country's economy and forced people to take to the streets. He should be held responsible. This government was formed without policy. What we said was seen yesterday. This won't end here. In a few weeks, there will be more cracks.
මේ අවලස්සන ඇමරිකානු ඇවිල්ලා 20 වෙනි ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනයේදී
Was it us who approved the 20th Amendment to the Constitution when it was brought forward by the ugly American? Before trying to save it, you must apologize to the nation for raising your hand and passing the 20th Amendment that paved the way for the person with dual citizenship or the American to come into parliament. We warned what will happen when they become presidents and finance ministers after pumping fuel from American filling stations. We spoke of handing over the Yugadanavi power plant. What happened when the people who swore to protect the country sold the Yugadanavi power plant? What was done about selling fuel tanks in the West Container Terminal? While the public continues the struggle against the administration, turmoil has taken place within the government. The external turmoil has caused an impact inside the government. The people of the country must not be deceived by these actors again. Just like how ticks switch their host when the dog dies, you cannot detach yourself from the government when it is failing. You must apologize to the people and the country for your mistakes. You must support a movement that attempts to rectify these errors.
කරපු වැරදි වලට ජාතියෙන් සමාව ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ වැරදි වලට රටේ මිනිස්සුන්ගෙන් සමාව ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒවා නිවැරදි කරන්න හැදෙන වැඩපිළිවෙලකට සහාය දෙන්න ඕනේ.
අවුරුදු 10ක් විතර මේ රට විනාශ කරලා
After destroying the country for 10 years, both of them were removed and replaced by similar thieves. That is to divert the attention of the people. Everyone is the same. Everyone should bear responsibility for the current state of the country. Everything has been destroyed, including cultivations. We have a suspicion whether they are trying to stage a drama here. Look at the problems faced by the people. We are fed up of looking at your drama.
විඳින ජනතාවගේ ප්‍රශ්න දිහා බලපල්ලා උඹලගේ නාඩගම් බලලා අපිට ඇති වෙලා තියෙන උඹලගේ නාඩගම් පාර දිගට ඩීසල් වල පෝලිං අපේ ගොවිසම්.
There are long queues for diesel. Leaders of farmers associations and farmers are on the streets to buy fuel. There is insufficient fuel even to reap a harvest. There are no agrochemicals. The government has failed. The cabinet has failed. Everyone in the cabinet must resign and give that responsibility to the leaders of farmers associations. We have farmers who are intelligent and honest leaders. Please resign. We can govern this country. Let's provide a solution to that. Give the country to the leaders of farmers associations.
Some ministers and state ministers took oaths in their new positions before the president. Pavitra Vanyarachi was appointed the Minister of Power, while Dilum Amunugama replaced her as Minister of Transport. C.B. Ratnayaka took oaths as Minister of Wildlife and Forest Conservation. The state ministerial subjects have also been brought under him. Vimalavira Disanayaka took oaths as the State Minister of Disaster Management before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Arundika Fernando, who resigned as State Minister over a brawl at the medical faculty of the Kelaniya University, was sworn into his same position again.
I
don't feel that this will resolve the problems of the people. Whom have they appointed as ministers? SP Disanayaka has been appointed as a Minister of Industries. We have seen with our own eyes as to what happened when he served as Minister in charge of Samurdhi and Higher Education as well. Gamini Lokuge has been appointed as the Minister of Energy. Based on how he ran the Ministry of Power, we can imagine what he would do to the Energy Ministry. Pavitra was a person who threw pots into rivers and went behind myths. Now that she is the Minister of Power, we don't know whether she would cut limes near the transformers. This is becoming a joke. Sri Lanka is continuing to face several problems, including the economic crisis, the gas and diesel shortage, and power cuts. At the same time, there are rifts emerging within the government as well. However, this was how a minister responded to journalists. I haven't thought about it yet. Everyone must live in peace and be patient.
You're watching Primetime News. Let's now cross over to a short commercial break.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Register today for a Zoom workshop on new technology in Sinhala.
Hack the world with cyber techniques on the 10th of March at 3 p.m.
Register via 0777 60020.
Organized by Slit Institute.
TechBus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University, challenging convention and redefining education.
Welcome back to the news. In more local news, the shortage of fuel has affected many sectors including transport, agriculture, fisheries and tourism. Long queues were seen at filling stations, although authorities said that a ship carrying diesel reached the country last night.
Long queues were seen at filling stations across the country today as well. Some filling stations had displayed notices stating that they have run out of fuel. A queue running for more than 2 kilometers was seen at a filling station in Bandaravilla. Fuel was sold to vehicles and people with cans as they formed separate queues. A tense situation arose after both queues were merged this afternoon.
Visiting office again. Visiting office bank company to visiting office again. Polling චෙක් පෝලිං වල ඕනේ රාජ්‍ය නැති ආයත රාජ්‍ය නැති රාජ්‍යයක් මේක. මේ වගේ ආණ්ඩුවල ඉන්නවට වැඩිය හොඳයි මුන් යන එක.
I feel a little bit sorry for your country that you have to deal with problems like this. I enjoyed visiting your country as a tourist and just want to experience a little bit more of it. So I think it's a bit of a shame that we have to deal like problems.
The police had to intervene to bring the situation under control. Long queues have been seen at a filling station in Dehi for 4 days. Fuel was sold to farmers who produced litters from farmers' associations. Farmers formed a long queue outside the residence of the president of farmers' associations to obtain a letter.
කුඹරක පාගන්න ආණ්ඩුවල දෙන්න බෑ ඩීසල් ටික. ඒ නිසා හෙට අනිද්දා වෙනකොට මේ ගොවියට අදාළ ඩීසල් ටික මෙතන ගියතුන් නැත්නම් හෙට දවසේ ගොවියෝ ටික එක්කන් යනවා පාරට.
Filling stations in Kandy and its surrounding areas had run out of fuel. Some filling stations have been closed completely.
කරන්නෙත් නෑ නිකන් මාරු කර කර ඉන්නවා විතරයි මොනා කවුරු මාරු කරත් වැඩක් නෑ අපිම මාරු වෙන්න ඕනේ මේ ගැන වෙන කිසිම මාරුවක් කළා වැඩක් නෑ.
Queues were seen at a filling station at the Medirigiri town for 3 days. Our correspondents reported that the filling station had run out of diesel and had only sold petrol. Long queues were seen at a filling station in Ratnapura for 2 days. People who were standing in queue at a filling station in Horana had organized a milk rice dancel in the area.
ජනතාවට අනේක විට පොරොන්දු දීලා අද තේල් ටික නැතුව ගෑස් ටික නැතුව ලංකාව අද මුළු ලංකාවම පාරට දාලා.
Drivers of buses that use the Southern Expressway say they have been affected by the fuel shortage. The Energy Ministry says a ship carrying 28,300 metric tons of diesel reached Sri Lanka today. A consignment of 37,500 metric tons of fuel had been unloaded at the Muthurajawala and Kolonava storage terminals. The Energy Ministry said they will begin distributing fuel from tomorrow. The Public Utilities Commission said power cuts will be imposed during the weekend. According to the PUCSL, groups P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W will experience power cuts for 3 hours from 8:30 am to 5:30 pm and for 1 hour from 6 pm to 10 pm. Meanwhile, groups E and F will experience power cuts for 4 hours from 8:30 am to 4:30 pm and for 3 hours from 4:30 pm to 10:30 pm. A 7.5 power cut took place today as well. According to the PUCSL, there will be no power cuts at the President's house, Madhiwala MP's quarters and Parliament premises in the zone to which electricity is distributed from the Sri Javardhanapura grid substation. In addition to this, uninterrupted supply of electricity to special locations including hospitals will also be provided. Meanwhile, queues for gas cylinders were seen in several areas today. A long queue of customers was seen opposite the Love's Gas dealership outlet in Bulumulla in Kandy. A 12.5 kilogram gas cylinder was sold at 3,551 rupees. Our correspondents questioned the sales representatives regarding the prices.
මනේ 3500 ගෑස් විකුණන්න කොහොමද? මේ 3500 දාලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ බෝඩ් එකේ 3500 දාලා තියෙන්නේ කොහොමද විකුණන්නේ 3500ට? 3500 ගෑස් ගන්නවද? ගත්තා. ඉතින් 2840 එන තව රජයෙන් වැඩි කරලවත් නැහැනේ. අපිට ගන්න වෙනවනේ ඉතින්. නැත්නම් ඉතින් බඩු ගන්න යන්නේ කවුද ඔක්කොම පොලින්නේ තියන්නේ.
උදේ ඉඳන් ඉන්නේ පොලිමේ. තාම ඉතින් නෑ ගෑස් එකක් ගත්තේ. කීයද ගත්තේ?
3551යි.
However, the Love's Gas company said it has not increased prices. A long queue to purchase liter gas was seen in Kadawatha today.
අපි හිතේ නෑ මේක මෙහෙම කරයි කියලා. ලාම්දල් පොලිම් පෙට්‍රල් පොලිම් ඔක්කොටම යන්න ඕනේ. ගන්න. පැය දෙක තුනක් පොලිම් ඉදලා තමයි ගන්නෙ. ඇම්ටි කොල්ල මාරු කර මොනවා කරනවා මන් දන්නේ නැහැ. හරියට කරන ඇම්ටි කෙනෙකුට දෙන්න ඕන. නෑ මෙහෙම රටක් මේ ඉස්සරහම තිබිලා නෑනේ.
Meanwhile, the people in Madurankulya in Putlam were seen waiting in line to purchase gas. Only 8.4 kilogram and 5 kilogram cylinders were sold at the dealership outlet. A 12.5 kilogram cylinder was not sold at the location. The two gas companies say the failure to issue letters of credit risks creating a crisis. Laughs Gas chairman WKH Wagapitiya says that his company, which released around 40,000 gas cylinders to the market daily, currently issues only 2,000 cylinders for a day. Litro, which launched 100,000 gas cylinders a day, has reduced its production by half. A senior official said they haven't received the required dollars to unload 2 consignments of gas that have reached the country.
Our government will overcome all these challenges, including the fuel, gas and dollar crisis. These issues will only prevail for few weeks. No one in the country can point their fingers at President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He is a transparent leader. No one can point fingers at this president. Meanwhile, the president today instructed state banks to provide credit facilities to the Paddy Marketing Board to purchase stocks of paddy as buffer stocks. This was during an inspection tour at the Paddy Marketing Board. The president's media division said the president visited to inquire into operations related to purchasing paddy during the Maha cultivation season, storing, selling and maintaining a continuous demand for paddy. The Paddy Marketing Board has the capacity to maintain a reserve of 315,000 metric tons of paddy and has recommended that steps be taken to increase it to 400,000 metric tons.
The central bank decided to increase policy interest rates today. Presenting policy package to the government, the central bank also recommended that to increase fuel prices and electricity tariffs immediately to reflect the costs.
The Monetary Board of the Central Bank decided to increase the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of the Central Bank by 100 basis points each to 6.5% and 7.5% respectively. The Central Bank also decided to revise upwards the caps imposed on interest rates applicable to credit cards to 20% per annum, on prearranged temporary overdrafts to 18% per annum and on pawning facilities to 12% per annum.
Stability sometimes has to be found in certain measures which could be difficult for us to appreciate as well. Sometimes people might think that we are not sensitive, but we are. In the long term, we have to ensure the stability as well. We have brought it up as an 8-point package. One is to introduce measures to discourage non-essential and non-urgent imports. The second is increasing fuel prices and electricity tariffs. Third is to incentivize foreign remittances. Fourth, we have requested the government to implement certain energy conservation measures whilst accelerating the move towards renewable energy as well. We also want to see increasing of government revenue through suitable taxes without it being a one-off only. And we have also asked for the mobilizing of foreign financing and non-debt forex inflows. Seventh, we want to see the government monetizing certain non-strategic and underutilized assets. There are quite a number of some non-essential and non-urgent capital projects or toned down.
What is the progress of the roadmap that the central bank presented, and where are the inflows that the government was confident we were getting? We don't see anything materializing right now.
We have not had a dearth of inflows, but we have had an increase in our outflows. The import figures in 2021 has been one of the highest. If you take some of the non-essential imports also, those have been increased. So therefore, we are concerned about that numbers, and that's why we have requested certain changes to be made for that.
We have certainly drawn our attention to that. If there is a requirement to make any changes, we will do that too. But right now, this is the ideal rate. We believe that we can repay our debts. We have considered all the alternatives to do so. We have created a suitable environment for that as well. No, we are working well together. There is no such issue, but we have responsibilities as well. We must direct our policies and decisions to the finance minister and the president. As the governor of the central bank, I will make sure I do my job. People make various interpretations about that, but I will continue to do my job. Although the central bank governor has expressed such remarks, the Asian Development Bank has said Sri Lanka's economic growth is much lower than other South Asian nations. The Asian Development Bank said Sri Lanka's economic growth of 3.4% is lower than countries such as Pakistan, which has recorded 3.9%. Bangladesh has also recorded an economic growth of 5.5%, while India has a growth of 10% and Maldives 18%.
9 chambers have presented 3 demands to the government. A joint statement was issued by Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, FCC ISL, Sri Lanka Apparel, Chamber of Young Lanka Entrepreneurs, Sri Lanka International Chamber of Commerce, National Chamber of Commerce, Exporters Association of Sri Lanka, Chamber of Construction Industry and the Women's Chamber of Industry and Commerce. The 3 demands are: establish a market-driven pricing formula for fuel, gas and electricity while also allowing flexibility on the exchange rate. Immediately commence a preemptive foreign debt restructuring process in an orderly manner. This should involve restructuring of both commercial and non-commercial debt. Pursue the support of the IMF and formulate a reform program that would provide confidence to the market and private sector with immediate effect. As a result of the ongoing forex crisis, the chambers say business activities are coming to a halt and the private sector is deeply concerned of the consequences this would have in terms of business continuity that could reverse some of the gains seen recently in tourism and export sectors.
The Colombo Permanent High Court trial at bar today ordered to release former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake and 10 other accused from the charges filed under the Public Property Act in the second bond scam case of 2016. The case was filed against them under the Public Property Act for causing a loss of 36 billion rupees to the state. High Court judges Damit Totawate and Banjula Tilakaratne, while giving a majority verdict, said that the charges against the accused under the Public Property Act could not be continued and that they would be acquitted. High Court Judge Mohammad Irsuddin said the charge could be continued against the accused. The case was called today to give a verdict on the initial objections raised by the accused that the case could not be continued. Announcing the majority verdict, presiding Judge Damit Totawate said that only natural persons can be charged under the Public Property Act.
The fundamental rights application by former JVP MP Sunil Handunnethi, noting that the fundamental rights of the people were violated as they did not receive benefits after the state decided to slash the taxes imposed on imported sugar, will be taken up on the 27th of June 2020 at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court also granted the petitioner permission to amend the petition to include Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa as a respondent in the application. The FR application was called up in the presence of Justices Priyantha Jayawardena, Murthy Fernando and Yasantha Kodagoda today. Sunil Handunnethi filed a fundamental rights petition with the Supreme Court claiming that the state incurred a 15.9 billion rupees loss due to the reduction of taxes on imported sugar. Further, the petitioner requests the Supreme Court to order former Finance Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and the respondents to take necessary measures to recover the losses and to recover 500 million rupees as compensation.
The Supreme Court decided to dismiss all the petitions filed seeking to invalidate the Cabinet's decision to transfer 40% of the government-owned shares of the Kerawala-Pittiya Yugadanavi power plant to the US company New Fortress Energy. The Supreme Court had made the decision to dismiss all the petitions without taking them up for examination as well. The petitions were dismissed by a 5-judge bench led by Chief Justice Jayanta Jayasuriya and comprising Justices Boanika Alvihare, Priyantha Jayawardena, Vijit Malalgoda and LTB Dehidenia. Venerable L.A. Gunawansa, His Eminence Malkap Cardinal Ranjit, General Secretary of the Samik Janabala Vegya Ranjit Madhur Bandara, Sunil Handunnethi and Vasanta Samarasinghe from the JVP, several trade unions and multiple other factions filed the petitions with the Supreme Court.
The steel bridge connecting Pigeon Island and Matara had collapsed today.
A steel bridge connecting the Randupada Upostagare temple on Pigeon Island and Matara had collapsed while some people were travelling on it today. Although Newsfirst had highlighted the grave danger posed by this bridge on multiple occasions, no steps were taken to repair the bridge. Our correspondent reported that some people who were travelling on the bridge when it collapsed had sustained minor injuries.
Well, at the inception, Treaty started as a small school. I think my predecessors of revered memory were excellent in reading the signs of the time. Among the many qualities that we look in a Trinitarian, I think the most important is the quality of adaptability.
COVID-19, in fact, gave us a formidable challenge, and we had to shut down all of a sudden.
Especially the Bradby, I am a rugby player personally, and that being disrupted is kind of sad. So I believe that we can start from where we stopped.
We need to have a blend of the old and the new in going forward with the 28th page.
Australian spin wizard Shane Warne has passed away at the age of 52 today. Australian cricketing legend Shane Warne has found responsive at his villa in Thailand today. A statement from his management company, MPC Entertainment, said he had passed away from a suspected heart attack. Warne is considered as one of the all-time cricketing greats with 708 test wickets and 293 ODI wickets to his name. The Foreign Ministry says Sri Lankan students in Belarus can return to Sri Lanka through Russia's capital, Moscow. The ministry said transit visas will be issued to them. Students can contact the Sri Lankan embassy in Moscow on the 24/7 hotline and email address that can be seen on the screen. Russia has taken control of a nuclear power station in Ukraine after it was hit by shelling. A fire broke out at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, the largest in Europe, and Ukraine said it was shelled by Russian troops. Authorities say the facility is now safe and radiation levels are normal.
The plant, located around 550 kilometers southeast of the capital Kyiv, generates around 20% of all electricity in Ukraine. It lies on the river Dnieper, northeast of the city of Kherson, which is said to have been occupied by Russian forces. Russian military has also seized control of the Chernobyl nuclear plant, the site of the worst nuclear disaster in history. Presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolak said the totally pointless attack on Thursday amounted to one of the most serious threats in Europe today. Due to the explosion in 1986, Chernobyl's exclusion zone, a 32-kilometer radius around the plant, remains largely devoid of human life 36 years after a flawed reactor design and a series of errors by its operators caused a major explosion at the plant. The plant's 3 other reactors were all shut down by 2000 and it has since been decommissioned. Russian troops attacked the biggest in Europe, Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. It alone could be as dangerous as 6 Chernobyls. The Russian tanks knew what they were shelling, directly pointing at the station. This is terror on an unprecedented level. Zelensky also called on the Russian civilians to express outrage about the plant attack.
Вы должны сказать своей власти, выйти на улицы и говорить, что вы хотите жить. Вы хотите жить на земле без радиоактивного заражения. Радиация не знает, где Россия. Радиация не знает, где границі вашої страни. Вчора на переговорах в Білорусі вдалося погодити створення гуманітарних коридорів. Там, де люди страждають найбільше. Сьогодні ми побачимо, чи працює домовлення.
The director of the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed that no radioactive material had been released from a fire at Europe's largest nuclear plant. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says in a statement, the reckless actions of President Putin could now directly threaten the safety of all of Europe. US President Joe Biden urged Russia to cease its military activities in the area, a call that was echoed by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who demanded Moscow immediately stop its unacceptable attacks. China's foreign ministry has urged all sides to ensure the safety of nuclear facilities in Ukraine amid fighting between Russian and Ukrainian forces. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which is a China-led development bank, says it has put all activities related to Russia and Belarus on hold in light of the evolving economic and financial situation. Asian shares sank to a 16-month low and oil prices continued to climb today as reports of the fire in war-torn Ukraine shook markets in the region. Russia's parliament today passed a law imposing a jail term of up to 15 years for spreading intentionally fake information about the armed forces. Russian officials have repeatedly said that false information has been intentionally spread by Russia's enemies, such as the US and its Western European allies, in an attempt to sow discord among the Russian people. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine have agreed on the need for humanitarian corridors to deliver aid and help civilians exit besieged Ukrainian cities, in the first apparent sign of progress in talks between the warring sides.
The people of Christuvakulam in Vavuniya gained access to clean drinking water after several years today. The project was carried out by Gammatha.
For several years, the people of Christuvakulam in Vavuniya were affected by the lack of access to clean drinking water. But from today, these villagers, among whom many are suffering from kidney diseases, can now quench their thirst with ease. In an effort to bring relief to the people of the village, Gammatha stepped in to provide them with a vital water purification system thanks to the generosity of Veena Desan from Velavatha. The technical assistance for this project was provided by the Sri Lankan Navy. Today, the villagers of Christuvakulam are all smiles as a long-standing need has finally been met. Gammatha, for the people, by the people.
With that, we wrap up Primetime News. I'm Bernadine Singha, and the interpreter for tonight is Brian. Good night. Take care.